Good morning, and welcome back. We are starting today with the Devi Bhagavata Purana, Book 9, Chapter 30. Before I started, I wanted to um, make one comment that I am proposing to skip over an impending section, not immediately here, but the passage going over the gruesome details of the Narakas. Not to avoid all unpleasantness, but more for the reason that we have already read it. Um, Indeed, kind of twice. It is almost verbatim identical to the equivalent passage in the Bhagavata and Vishnu Puranas, which we've read together. So my plan is to not uh, go through that passage again. But I will go over everything else here. I'm just figuring that since it's just a description of hellish tortures that we have already read, almost word for word, I don't really see a purpose of doing that a third time here. But there's tons of other material in the chapter first, so I will start in with that. This is in the conversation between um, Savitri, the Savitri avatar, Savitri as a human woman, and Yamaraj. Savitri said, O Dharmarajan, kindly tell me in detail about those karmas that lead meritorious persons to the heavens and various other spheres. Dharmaraj said, O child, he who gives rice and food to the Brahmanas in Bharata goes to Shiva Loka, where he dwells with great respect for years equivalent to the measure of that food. This annadana, the giving of the essential food in annadana is boiled rice, and then other foods together with it, is a great dana, a great giving. And this can be done not only to the Brahmanas, but to the other Varnas also. And similar results follow. In giving food charity, you get similar merits, regardless of the caste of who you offer it to. For here, no distinction is made as to what Varna will get it or not. Um, it's suitable to offer food and charity to people of any caste. Nor is there discrimination of time when to give such a charity. At any time is good. O child, asanas or seats given to the devas and the brahmanas carry the donor to Vishnu Loka, where he dwells for ayuta years with great respect and love. That's 10,000 years. Giving excellent cows yielding milk to brahmanas also takes the donor to Vishnu Loka, where he is glorified and remains for years equivalent to the number of pores in those cows' bodies. And if those cows be given on a meritorious day, 4 times the merits accrue. And if given in a sacred place of pilgrimage, 100 times the result occurs. And if given in a tirtha where Narayana is worshipped, 40 times the results accrue. He who gives with devotion cows to the Brahmanas in Bharata remains in the Chandraloka for 1 ayuta years and is glorified. This is an interesting comment in that previously it was said that giving cows takes one to Vishnu Loka, implying that if one does it in the land of Bharata, it takes you to Chandraloka instead of Vishnu Loka. That passage actually could be taken to imply that it's better to give cows to Brahmins outside of Bharata, which is an interesting implication. Although it could also be taken to the other difference is that the second time it is not mentioned that the cows must be yielding milk. He who gives a two-mouthed cow, a dvimukha cow, that's not literally a two-mouthed cow, but that refers to a certain variety of cow, dvimukha cow, to a brahmana goes to Vishnu Loka, and remains there for as many years as there exist hairs on the body of that cow and is glorified. A gift of a beautiful white umbrella to a Brahmana makes one go to Varuna Loka for Ayuta years, where he remains with great pleasure. Giving garments to diseased Brahmanas makes one fit to remain with glory in Vayu Loka for 10,000 years. Giving to a Brahmana the Shalagrama and garments makes one remain with glory in Vaikuntha as long as the sun and moon exist. Giving beautiful bedding to a Brahmana glorifies the giver in the Chandraloka as long as the sun and moon exist. To offer lights to the Devas and Brahmana glorifies the giver in Agni Loka for one Manvantara. To give elephants to the Brahmanas in Bharata makes one sit on the same throne as Indra for the lifespan of Indra. This could refer to a sort of merging with Indra, or it potentially could refer to being reborn as Indra's wife. Giving horses to the Brahmanas makes one remain in Varuna Loka for 14 Indra's life periods, or one full, giving a good palanquin to a Brahmana makes one remain in the Varuna Loka for 14 Indra's life periods. Giving a good seat or a good orchard to a Brahmana leads one to the Vayu Loka, where he remains with glory for one Manvantara. Giving a white chamara and fan to a Brahmana leads the donor to the Vayu Loka, where he remains for one Ayuta years. Giving grains and jewels makes one long-lived, and both the donors and receivers go certainly to Vaikuntha. He who always recites the name of Sri Hari lives forever, and death goes far, far away from him. The intelligent man that celebrates the Doli Yatra, or the swinging festival, in the last quarter of the full moon night in this land of Bharata becomes liberated while living, enjoys pleasures in this world, and goes in the end to Vishnu Loka, where he remains for 100 Manvantaras. There is no doubt in this. If the Doli Yatra, the swinging festival, be performed under the influence of the asterism Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, then the above fruits become doubled. In other words, for 200 Manvantaras. This is the saying of Brahma himself. The performer lives to the end of a kalpa. To give til, til is black sesame seeds, to a Brahmana leads one to Shivaloka, where one enjoys for a number of years equal to the number of seeds. After that, one is born in a good yoni or a good birth and becomes long-lived and happy. To give a copper plate yields double the effect. So in other words, to offer sesame on a copper plate, then you get 2 years per sesame seed. To give in Bharata a chaste wife with garments and ornaments to a Brahman leads one to Chandraloka, where one remains for 14 Indra's life periods and enjoys the celestial apsaras day and night. Thence the donor goes to the, after that, the donor then goes to the Gandharva Loka for 10,000 more years, and day and night enjoys Urvashi. Then he gets for 1,000 births chaste, fortunate, wealthy, gentle, and sweet-speaking beautiful wives. He who gives nice and delicious fruits to the Brahmanas remains with glory in the Indraloka for a number of years equivalent to the fruits, then gets again a good birth and excellent sons. To give 1,000 trees while there are fruits on them, or nice fruits only and not the trees, to the Brahmanas, makes one enjoy the heavens for a long, long time, and then he comes back to Bharata. To give various things and good edifices with grains, etc., to the Brahmanas leads one to the regions of the Devas, where he remains for 100 Manvantaras. Then he gets a very good birth and becomes the master of abundant wealth. He who gives with devotion to the Brahmanas lands certainly goes for 100 Manvantaras and remains there to Svarga and remains there in glory for 100 Manvantaras. And coming again will then be born in good wombs and become Rajas. The earth does not leave him for 100 births. In other words, for 100 births, he will be a landowner. He becomes prosperous, wealthy, and possesses many sons and becomes the lord of his subjects. He who gives a good village with pasture land and cows dwells with glory in Vaikuntha for 1,00,000 manvantaras. Then he gets a good birth and obtains 1,00,000 villages. In other words, would become a ruler of a large tract of land. The earth quits him not, even if he be born 1,00,000 times. The translator adds a note here, the Swami. This is very bad, then, to one who does not wish to be born again. Indeed, this is true. The good karma is just as binding as bad karma to the cycle of rebirth. And so such materialistic charities would not be conducive to liberation, but only to worldly pleasures. He who gives the village inhabited by good and obedient subjects with ripe, excellent grains, various tanks of water, trees and adorned with fruits and leaves, dwells in Kailasha with great glory for 10,00,000 lives of Indra. Then, getting again born in a high family, he becomes Rajadhiraja in Bharata and obtains Niyuta towns. In other words, becomes an emperor. There is no doubt in this. The earth quits him not, even if he be born 10,000 times. So, in other words, he can't. He may become a great ruler, but he commits himself to at least 10,000 rebirths before it is possible for him to obtain moksha. Really, he gets the highest prosperity in this earth. He who gives to a Brahmana 100 towns and countries inhabited by good or mediocre subjects, with wells, tanks, and various trees, remains with glory in Vaikuntha for 1,00,000 manvantaras. Then he becomes born in this earth in a family of high varna, becomes the lord of Jambudvipa, and attains in this earth prosperity, great prosperity like Indra. The earth quits him not, even if he comes here 40 times. In reality, he is a Mahatma, Raja Rajeshvara, and lives up to the end of a kalpa. But has, again, committed himself to not leaving the cycle of reincarnation here for an extremely long period of time. He who gives his whole property to a Brahman gets in the end 4 times that. There is no doubt in this. He who gives Jambudvipa to an ascetic Brahmana gets undoubtedly in the end 100 times the fruit. This would, of course, require you to be the emperor of the entire continent of Jambudvipa, which I don't believe anyone has achieved since the Pandavas. But in theory, if you could give that. If you give away Jambudvipa, the whole earth, if you travel to all the tirthas, if you perform all sorts of asceticisms, if you give shelter to all, if you make gifts of all sorts, know that you will have to come again to be reborn in this earth. But if you become a devotee of Mula Prakriti, then be sure that you won't have to come here and be reborn. My father, in this copy, his copy of this scripture, starred that passage. If you give away the whole earth, if you travel to all the tirthas, if you perform all sorts of asceticisms, if you give shelter to all, if you make gifts of all sorts, know that you will have to come again to be reborn in this earth. But if you become a devotee of Mula Prakriti, then be sure that you won't have to come and be reborn. The devotees of Mula Prakriti go to Manidvipa, the highest place of Sri Bhuvaneshwari Devi, and remain there, and they see the fall of innumerable Brahmas. The worshippers of the Devi mantra, when they quit their mortal coils, assume divine appearances endowed with vibhutis, with manifestations of powers, and become free from birth, death, and old age. They assume the sarupya of the Devi. They obtain a form similar to the Devi and remain in her service. They reside in Manidvipa and see the pralayas come and go. The devas die, the siddhas die, The whole universe vanishes, but the Devi bhaktas never die, and they remain free from birth, death, and old age. He who offers even a single tulsi leaf to Bhagavan Hari in the month of Kartika resides for 3 yugas in the temple of Hari. Then, getting again a good birth, he acquires devotion to Sri Hari and becomes the foremost of those who restrain their senses. He who bathes in the Ganga early before the rising of the sun remains in enjoyment in the temple of Hari for 60,000 yugas, getting again a good birth. This refers to these dwelling for yugas in the temple of Hari. Clearly refers to in an unborn form, being a disembodied spirit dwelling in great bliss in a Vishnu temple. Then, getting again a good birth, he gets the Vishnu mantra. A guru will initiate him in a Vishnu mantra, and then, quitting his mortal coil, he will become united with the feet of Sri Hari. He has not to come back from Vaikuntha to this earth, but will remain in Hari's service and get the Sarupya of Hari, a form similar to Hari. He who bathes daily in the Ganga becomes purified like the sun and gets the result of performing the Ashvamedha at every step. The earth becomes purified by the dust of his feet, and he enjoys in Vaikuntha as long as the sun and moon exist. Then again, he becomes born in a good and beautiful birth and is liberated by acquiring devotion to Hari. He becomes very energetic and the foremost of the ascetics, pure, religious, learned, and self-restrained. When the sun comes midway between Pisces and Cancer and intensely heats the earth in high summer, the man who in Bharata gives cool water to drink to the people resides in happiness in Kailasha for 14 life periods of Indra. Then, getting again a good birth here, he becomes beautiful, happy, devoted to Shiva, energetic and expert in the Vedas and the Vedangas. He who gives to a Brahmana the Shaktu in the month of Vaishaka enjoys in a Shiva temple for as many years as there are particles in that gift of Shaktu, which is powdered dry oats. He who performs the Krishna Janmashtami Vrata in this Bharata, the observation and fast and celebration of the birth of Sri Krishna in Bharata, is freed from the sins occurred in the previous 100 births. There is no doubt in this. The observer of the vow of the Krishna Janmashtami Vrata remains in great enjoyment in Vaikuntha for 14 life periods of Indra, then gets again a good birth here and acquires Hari Bhakti. He who performs the Shivaratri Vrata in this Bharata Varsha resides with great joy in Shivaloka for 7 manvantaras. He who offers the bale leaves to Shiva, the leaves of the bale tree, at the time of Shivaratri, in the night of Shivaratri, resides with great joy in Shiva's abode for as many yugas as there were bale leaves offered. Then, getting again a good birth here, he acquires again devotion to Shiva and becomes learned, prosperous, and possesses sons, subjects, and lands. He who performs a vrata and worships Shankara in the month of Chaitra or Magha, and who with a branch of a tree in his hand dances day and night for 1 month, or half a month, or for just 10 days, or even for only 7 days, dwells in Shiva Loka for as many yugas as the number of days he danced. He who performs the vow of Sri Rama Navami, the birthday of Sri Ramachandra, lives in the abode of Vishnu for 7 manvantaras in great joy. Then, getting again a good birth, he becomes devoted to Sri Rama, the foremost of those who have self-restraint, and he becomes very wealthy. He who performs the Sharadiya Puja, this is the the Sharadiya Navaratri Puja, the autumn Navaratri of the Mula Prakriti, with incense, lights, offerings of food, and animal sacrifices of buffaloes, goats, sheep, rhinoceros, frogs, or other animals, together with dancing, music, and various other auspicious things, resides in the Shiva Loka for 7 Manvantaras. Interesting that it's the Shiva Loka, though the puja is to Durga. Getting an excellent birth and a pure understanding, he gets unbounded prosperity, sons, and no doubt grandsons, and he becomes a very powerful sovereign, possessing many horses and elephants. There is no doubt in this. Again, he who worships daily with devotion for a fortnight, beginning from the 8th day of the bright fortnight, the Mahadevi Lakshmi remains in the region of Goloka for 14 life periods of Indra. Then, obtaining an excellent birth, he becomes a sovereign. He who, on the full moon night in the month of Kartika, prepares a rasa mandala with 100 gopas and gopis, and worships Sri Krishna and Radha in a shalagrama or in images with 16 varieties of offerings, remains in Goloka for the rest of the lifetime of Brahma, and then, coming again to Bharata, acquires an unflinching devotion to Sri Krishna. And when this bhakti becomes greatly intensified, he gets initiated by a guru into Sri Hari Mantra, and after quitting his mortal coil, he goes back to the Goloka. Then he gets the Sarupya of Krishna and becomes the chief Parishad, the chief attendant of Krishna. And becoming free from old age, he has no fear to ever fall again down to this earth. He who observes the Ekadashi day. Here's yours, Andy. He who observes the Ekadashi day remains fasting and performing penances in the 11th day of the waxing or waning of the moon, remains in Vaikuntha in great enjoyment and comfort. Then, again coming into this Bharata, he becomes a devotee of Hari. And when that bhakti is intensified, he becomes solely devoted to Hari. And when quitting his mortal coil, goes again to the Goloka and gets the Sarupya of Krishna and becomes his Parishada, or becomes Krishna's attendant. Then, freed from old age and death, he does not fall again. He who worships Indra in the month of Bhadra, and the 12th day of the waxing moon, is worshipped in the regions of Indra for 60,000 years. He who performs in Bharata the worship of the sun on Sunday Sankranti, when the sun moves from one sun, so on the nearest Suryavara, the nearest Sunday to when the sun goes from one sign to another, and in the bright 7th Tithi, according to due rules and ceremonies of the Surya Puja, and eats the food called Havishyanna, the rice boiled in ghee. Such a one will dwell in the Surya Loka for 14 life periods of Indra. Then, coming again to Bharata, he becomes free from all diseases and prosperous. He who worships Savitri on the 14th day of the waning moon, so that would be on the new moon, dwells in the region of Brahma for 7 Manvantaras, with great eclat and glory. Coming again to Bharata, he enjoys beauty, unequaled valor, long life, knowledge, and prosperity. He who worships on the 5th day of the waxing moon in the month of Magha, with his senses controlled and full of devotion, the Devi Saraswati, with 16 articles of food, resides in Manidvipa for 1 day and 1 night of Brahma. On getting rebirth, he becomes a poet and a learned man. He who daily gives with devotion for his whole life cows and gold to a Brahmana. So however many cows and however much gold he's able to give over the course of his life. Dwells in, every day for his whole life. Dwells in Vishnu Loka for twice as many years as there are hairs on the bodies of those cows, and plays and jests with Vishnu. In doing auspicious things, he finds pleasure. In the end, he comes again to this Bharata and becomes the king of kings, He becomes fortunate, prosperous, possesses many sons, becomes learned, full of knowledge, and happy in every way. Of course, to be able to do that, you have to be able to afford a cow every day. So this is clearly something only for extremely wealthy people, that particular one. He who feeds a Brahmana here with sweetmeats goes to Vishnu Loka and enjoys there for as many years as there are hairs on the body of the Brahman. In the end, he comes again to Bharata and becomes happy, wealthy, learned, long-lived, fortunate, and very powerful. He who merely utters the name of Hari, or who gives the name of Hari to others, is worshipped in Vishnu Loka for as many yugas as the number of times the name or mantra was uttered. Then coming again to Bharata, he becomes happy and wealthy. And if such things be done in Narayana Kshetra, 40 times the above results ensue. So in other words, in a holy land of Narayana, for example, in the land of Vraja, around Vrindavana, or in the consecrated precincts of any Narayana temple, or so on. He who repeats the name of Hari 40 times in Narayana Kshetra, in a consecrated holy land of Narayana, becomes no doubt freed of all sins and liberated while living, and he will not get rebirth, but shall live always in Vaikuntha. He gets the Salokya Moksha, is not liable to fall, and becomes a bhakta of Vishnu. He who daily worships the earthen Shivalinga, after making it daily, so every day you make a Shivalinga out of earth and to worship it, and dissolve it at the end. If you do that every day for your whole life, you go to the Shivaloka and dwell there for as many years as there are number of particles of earth in all of the Shivalingas. Getting rebirth, such a one then becomes the king of kings. He who worships daily the Shalagrama Shila and drinks the water as prasad. So you bathe the Shalagrama Shila every day, and the runoff water from bathing it you drink, is glorified in Vaikuntha for 100 lives of Brahma, and then becomes born again. Upon becoming born again, he shall acquire rare Hari Bhakti, and quitting that mortal coil, goes back to Vishnu Loka, whence he is then not to return. He who performs all the tapasyas and observes all the vratas dwells in Vaikuntha for 14 life periods of Indra. Getting rebirth in Bharata, he becomes the king of kings for a final life, and then becomes liberated and is not to return anymore. He who bathes in all the tirthas and makes a journey round the whole world gets nirvana and is not reborn. He who performs the Ashvamedha Yajna in this holy land of Bharata enjoys half the Indraship for as many years as there are hairs on the body of the horse. He who performs a Rajasuya Yajna gets 4 times the above result. Of all the yajnas, the Devi Yajna, or the sacrifice before the Devi, is the best. O fair one, of old, Vishnu, Brahma, and Indra did a Devi Yajna, and when Tripurasura was killed, Mahadeva also did a Devi Yajna. O beautiful one, this Yajna before the Shakti is the highest and best of all the Yajnas. There was nothing like this in the 3 worlds. This Mahayajna was done of yore by Daksha when he collected abundant sacrificial materials of all sorts, and a quarrel ensued on this account between Daksha and Shankara. The Brahmins conducting the Yajna cursed Nandi and others, and Nandi cursed the Brahmanas. Mahadeva therefore disallowed the going on of the Yajna and brought it to a dead stop. Of yore, the Prajapati Daksha did this Devi Yajna. It was done also by Dharma, Kashyapa, Ananta, Kardama, Swayambhuva Manu, his son Priyavrata, Shiva, Sanat Kumara, Kapila, and Dhruva. The performance of this yajna, the Devi Yajna, brings fruits equal to performing thousands and thousands of Rajasuya Yajnas. Therefore, there is no other yajna greater than this Devi Yajna. One becomes surely endowed with a long life of 100 years and is liberated while living, becomes equal to Vishnu in knowledge, energy, strength, and asceticism. This is as true as anything. O child, this Devi Yajna is the best and highest of all the yajnas, as Vishnu is the highest amongst the Devas. Narada is the highest amongst the Vaishnavas. The Vedas are the highest amongst all the Shastras. The Brahmanas are the highest amongst all the Varnas. The Ganga is the highest among all sacred places of pilgrimage. Shiva is the highest among the holy of holies. The Ekadashi Vrata is the highest among all the vratas or all the fasts. Tulasi is the highest amongst all flowering plants. The moon is the highest amongst the nakshatras, or the ruler of the nakshatras. Garuda is the highest amongst the birds. Prakriti, Radha, Saraswati, and Bhumi amongst females. The mind amongst the quick moving and restless senses. Brahma among the Prajapatis. Brahma amongst all subjects or all creatures within the universe. Vrindavana amongst all forests. Bharatavarsha amongst all varshas. Lakshmi amongst the prosperous. Saraswati amongst the learned. Durga amongst the chaste. Radhika amongst the fortunate. If 100 Ashvamedha yajnas are performed, Indrahood is sure to be obtained. It is by the influence of bathing in all the tirthas, performing all the yajnas, observing all the vratas, practicing all the austerities, studying all the Vedas, and circumambulating the whole earth, that this highest Shakti's service is obtained, and this service of Shakti is the direct cause of mukti. To worship the lotus feet of the Devi is the best and highest, as stated in all the Puranas and all the Vedas and in all the Itihasas. To sing the glories of Mula Prakriti, to meditate on her, to chant her name and attributes, to remember her stotras, bow down before her, to repeat her name, and to drink daily her Bardodoka, the water after washing her feet, and the offerings already offered to her, to eat them as prasada. These are approved of by all, and everyone desires this. So worship this Mula Prakriti, who was of the nature of Brahman, and lo, who was again endowed with Maya. O child, take your husband and live happily with him in your home, Yama says to Savitri. O child, thus I have described to you the fruition of the karmas. This is auspicious to every human being, desired by all and approved of by all. The real knowledge springs from this, there is no doubt in this. Here ends the 30th chapter of the 9th book on the conversation between Savitri and Yama on the fruition of karmas in the great Puranam Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharshi Veda Vyasa. Chapter 31. Narayana said, O Narada, hearing thus the supreme nature of Mula Prakriti from Dharmaraja Yama, the two eyes of Savitri were filled with tears of joy, and her whole body was filled with a thrill of rapture, joy, and ecstasy. She again addressed Yama, O Dharmaraja, to sing the glories of Mula Prakriti is the only means of saving all. This takes away the old age and death of both the speaker and the hearer. This is the supreme place of the Danavas, the Siddhas, the ascetics. This is the yoga of the yogins, and this is studying the Veda of the Vedics. Nothing can compare even to 1/16th of a 16th part of the merits of those who are in Shakti's service. Call it mukti, immortality, or attaining endless siddhis, nothing can come to it. O thou foremost of the knowers of the Vedas, I have heard by and by everything from thee. Now describe to me how to worship Mula Prakriti, and what are the ends of karmas, auspicious and inauspicious. Thus saying, the chaste Savitri bowed down her head and began to praise Yama and stotras according to the Vedas. She said, O Dharmarajan, Surya practiced of yore very hard austerities at Pushkara and worshipped Dharma. Upon this, Dharma himself became born of Surya as his son. And thou art that son of Surya, the incarnation of Dharma, so I bow down to thee. Thou art the witness of all the jivas. Thou seest them equally. Hence thy name is Samana, or one with sameness of vision, one who looks upon all in the same way. I bow down to thee. Sometimes thou by thy own will takest away the lives of beings, hence thy name is Kratanta, obeisance to thee. Thou holdest the rod to distribute justice and pronounce sentence on them and to destroy the sins of the jivas, hence thy name is um, Dardhara. So I bow down to thee. At all times thou destroyest the universe, none can resist thee. Hence thou art named Kala, or time. So obeisance to thee. Thou art an ascetic devoted to Brahman, self-controlled, and the distributor of the fruits of karmas to the jivas. Thou restrainest thy senses, hence thou art called Yama. Therefore I bow down to thee. Thou art delighted with thy own self. Thou art omniscient. Thou art the tormentor of the sinners and the friend of the virtuous. Hence thy name is Punyamitra. So I bow down to thee. Thou art born as a part of Brahma. The Brahma Teja is shining through thy body. Thou dost meditate on Parabrahman. Thou art the Lord. Obeisance to thee. O Muni, thus praising Yama, she bowed down at his feet. Yama gave her initiation in the mantra of Mula Prakriti and taught her how to worship her, and he began to recite the fruition of good karmas. O Narada, he who recites these 8 hymns to Yama, this Yamashtakam, early in the morning, getting up from his bed, is free of the fear of death. Rather, he becomes freed of all his sins. So much so that even if he be a veritable awful sinner, and if he recites daily with devotion this Yamashtakam, Yama purifies him thoroughly. Here ends the 31st chapter of the 9th book on Yama's giving Diksha of Shakti Mantra to Savitri, and the Mahapuranam Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharshi Veda Vyasa. Chapter 32. Narayana said, then, initiating her with the Mahabija, the Adi Mantra of the Mahashakti, Sri Bhuvaneshwari, in accordance with due rules, the son of Surya, Yamaraja, began to recite the various effects of various karmas, auspicious and inauspicious. Never do persons go to Naraka when they perform good karmas. It is only bad deeds that lead to Narakas. The different Puranas narrate various heavens. The jivas go to those places as the effects of their various good karmas. Good karmas do not lead people to Narakas, but the bad karmas do lead veritably to various hideous Narakas. In different shastras, different Narakas are ascertained. Different karmas, different evil deeds, lead men to different Narakas. O child, those Narakas are very wide, deep, painful, and tormenting, very horrible and ugly. Of these, 86 pits or kundas are prominent. Many other kundas exist. There follows a list of the names of the 86 kundas. O Savitri, these kundas give much pain and torment greatly the sinners. They are under the constant watch of innumerable servants. And so on. But those who do their svadharma, who are shaktas, sauras, shaktas, devotees of Shakti, sauras, devotees of Surya, the sun god, or ganapatyas, devotees of Ganapati, or those who are virtuous siddha yogis, they never see the servants of Yama. My father starred and underlined that sentence. But those who do their svadharma, who are shaktas, sauras, or ganapatyas, or those who are virtuous siddha yogis, they never see the servants of Yama. Those who are engaged in their own dharmas, who are possessed of wisdom, who are endowed with knowledge, who are mentally strong, who are untouched with fear, who are endowed with the feelings of the devas, and those who are real Vaishnavas, they never see these servants of Yama. Here ends the 32nd chapter of the 9th book, and the Mahapuranam Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharshi Veda Vyasa. Dharmarajan said, those that are in Hari's service, pure, siddhas in yoga, those who have attained success in yoga, performers of vrata, the chaste, the ascetics, and the brahmacharis never go to narakas. There is no doubt in this. And here begins the main passage that I proposed to skip over, just because we have already read it in the Vishnu Purana on the grisly and detailed description of various narakas. Which runs through chapter 35. So beginning with chapter 36. Savitri said, O Dharmarajan, O highly fortunate one, O thou expert in the Vedas and the Angas thereof, now kindly describe that which is the essence of the various Puranas and Itihasas, which is the quintessence, which is dear to all, approved of by all, which is the seed by which the karmic ties are cut asunder, which is high, noble, and happy in this life. Kindly describe the above, by which humans can acquire all their desires, and what is the only source of all the good and auspicious things, and by knowing which, people have not to face any dangers or troubles, nor have to go to the dreadful narakas that thou hast severally just now described, and that by which human beings can be freed of these various wombs of rebirth. Kindly now describe all these. O Bhagavan, she also asks, what is the size of the several kundas of Naraka that thou hast just now enumerated? Um, Narayana spoke. Hearing the questions put forward by Savitri, Dharmaraja remembered Srihari, so took a moment to mentally dwell on Srihari, and then began to speak on subjects that sever the bonds of karma. O child, O one of good vows, in the four Vedas, in all the books on dharma, in the smritis and in all the sanhitas, all the itihasas, all the Puranas, and the Narada Pancharatram, and the other dharma shastras and in the Vedangas. It is definitely stated that the worship of the Pancha Devatas, Shiva, Shakti, Vishnu, Ganesha, and Surya, is the best, the highest, the destroyer of the old age, disease, death, evils, and sorrows, the most auspicious and leading to the highest bliss. This sentence was again starred and underlined by my father here. It is definitely stated that the worship of the Pancha Devatas, the five Devatas, Shiva, Shakti, Vishnu, Ganesha, and Surya, is the best, the highest, the destroyer of the old age, disease, death, evils, and sorrows, the most auspicious, and leading to the highest bliss. In fact, the worship of these Pancha Devatas is the source of acquiring all the siddhis and saves one from going to the narakas. From their worship springs the tree of bhakti, and then only the root of the tree of all karmic bonds is severed forever and ever. This is the step to final mukti and is the indestructible state. By this one can get salokya, sarashti, sarupya, and samipya, the different states of mokshas in which the soul resides in. So in salokya moksha, the soul resides in the same world with the deity, whichever of those five devatas one's devotion is to. In sarshti moksha, the soul possesses the same station, condition, or rank, or equality with the supreme being and power, and all the divine attributes. In sarupya moksha, is moksha in which the soul possesses sameness of form. So either obtains a form resembling that of the Devata, or gets assimilated into the deity, or in Samipya Moksha, in which the soul gets intimately united, identified, and absorbed into the deity. O auspicious one, the worshipper of these 5 devatas has never to see any of the Narakas watched by my messengers. Those who are devoid of devotion to the Devi see my abode, but those who go to the tirthas of Hari, who hold Harivasaras, or festivities on the holy days of Hari, who bow down at the feet of Hari and worship Hari, never come to my abode named Samyamana. Samyamana is the city of Yama, through which the dead are processed. Those Brahmanas that are purified by their performing the Trikala Sandhyas, the daily rites at dawn, noon, and sunset, doing Agnihotra and so on. And by their following the pure acharas, the pure customs and observances of Brahmanas, those that find no pleasure until they worship the Devi first, those that are attached to their own dharmas and their own acharas, never come to my abode. My terrible messengers, seeing the devotees of Shiva, run away out of terror like snakes terrified by Garuda. I also order my messengers, with nooses in their hands, never to go to them, never to go to the devotees of Shiva. My messengers go mostly to persons other than the servants of Hari. No sooner do my messengers see the worshippers of the Krishna mantra than they run away, like snakes terrified at the sight of Garuda. Chitragupta, too. Chitragupta is one of the beings in Yama's world who records the vices and virtues of people, the record keeper and secretary of Yama, strikes off the names of the Devi worshippers from his list out of fear and prepares madhuparka for them, a mixture of honey, a respectful offering for them. The worshippers of Devi rise higher than Brahmaloka and go to the Devi's abode of Manidvipa. Those that are the worshippers of the Shakti mantra and are highly fortunate, whose contact removes the sins of others, they deliver 1,000 generations. As bundles and bundles of dry grasses become burnt to ashes no sooner than they are thrown into fire, so delusion at once becomes itself deluded at the sight of the forms of those devotees of the Shakti mantra. At their sight, lust, anger, greed, disease, sorrow, old age, death, fear, kala, good and bad karmas, pleasures and enjoyments drop off to a great distance. O fair one, now I have described to you the states of those persons that are not under the control of kala, of good and bad karmas, of pleasures and enjoyments, etc., and those that do not suffer pains. Now I am speaking of this visible body. Listen. Earth, water, fire, air, and ether are the 5 Mahabhutas. These are the seeds of this visible body of the person and are the chief factors in the work of creation. The body that is made up of earth and other elements is transient and artificial. That body becomes burnt to ashes. Bound within this visible body, there is a Purusha of the size of a thumb. That is called the Jiva Purusha. The subtle Jiva, or Sukshma Jiva, assumes those subtle bodies for enjoying the effects of the karmas. In my world, that subtle body, that Sukshma Sharira, is not burnt by the burning fire. If that subtle body be immersed in water, if it be beaten incessantly, or if it be struck by a weapon or pierced by a sharp thorn, that subtle body is not destroyed, like the physical body would be. That body is not burnt nor broken by burning hot and molten material, by the red-hot iron, by hot stones, by embracing a hot image, or by falling into a burning cauldron. That body is what suffers incessant pains in Naraka. O fair one, thus I have dwelt on the subject of the several bodies and the causes thereof according to the Shastras. And here ends the 36th chapter of the 9th book on the destruction of the fear of Yama, of those who are the worshippers of the 5 devatas, and the Mahapuranam Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharishi Veda Vyasa. And so to clarify, it's not that the requirement is to worship all 5, but to worship any of the 5. The next chapter is further descriptions of Naraka that we have already had. So, skipping to chapter 38, to original material, Savitri said, O Lord, give me the devotion to the Devi, to that Adya Shakti Bhagavati Mahamaye Parameshwari Mayi, that is the essence of all essences, the door of final liberation to human beings, and the cause of deliverance from Naraka, that is the root of all the dharmas that lead to mukti, that destroys all inauspiciousness, that takes away the fear of all the karmas, and that takes away always all the sins committed before. O thou, the foremost amongst the knowers of the Vedas, how many kinds of muktis are there in this world? What is the true bhakti? What are its characteristics? What is to be done by which the enjoyment of the karmas done can be desisted and nullified? O Bhagavan, now tell me something about this true knowledge. All the charities, yajnas, bathing in the sacred places of pilgrimage, observing vows and austerities, cannot be compared with 1/16th of the virtue of imparting knowledge to those who are ignorant. Mother is 100 times superior to father, this is certain. But the spiritual teacher, the giver of true knowledge, is 100 times more to be reverenced and worshipped than the mother, O Lord. Dharmaraja said, O child, what boons you desired of me before, I granted them all to you. Now I grant this further boon to you. Let the devotion towards the Shakti now arise in your mind. O auspicious one, you want to hear the recitation of the glories of Sri Devi. By this, both the one who puts forward the question, both the one who asks and hears the answer and the one who puts forth the answer, all their families are delivered. When the Shesha Naga Ananta Deva with his 1,000 mouths is unable to recite the glories of the Devi in full, when Mahadeva cannot describe it with his 5 mouths, when the creator Brahma is incapable to recite all her glories with his 4 mouths, when Vishnu the omniscient falls back from the task, when Kartikeya with his 6 mouths cannot sufficiently describe, when Ganesha, the guru of the gurus of the great yogis, is incapable of fully describing her glories, when the Pandits, the knowers of the 4 Vedas, the essence of all the Shastras, cannot know even a bit of her, when Saraswati becomes inert in going to describe her glories, when Sanat Kumara, Dharma, Sanatana, Sananda, Sanaka, Kapila, Surya, and other sons of the Creator have fallen back, when the other Siddhas, Yogindras, Monindras are quite incapable to glorify all the deeds of Prakriti Devi, then how can I fully recite the glories of her? Whose lotus feet Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and others meditate upon. And lo, when it becomes difficult for her devotees even to think of her, and what wonder is there that she will be so very rare to others? Brahma, skilled in the knowledge of the Vedas, knows more of her than what other ordinary persons know so little of her auspicious glories. More than Brahma, Ganesha, the guru of the Jnanins, knows. Again, Shambhu, the omniscient, knows the best of all. For in ancient times, the knowledge of the Prakriti Devi was given to him by Krishna, the highest spirit, in a solitary place in the Rasa Mandalam, in the region of Goloka. That passage, again, was my father starred and underlined 2 passages here. He starred and underlined Ganesha, the guru of the gurus of the great yogis. My father is particularly a Ganesha devotee, so hence his interest in Ganesha. He also starred and underlined that whole sentence. Brahma, skilled in the knowledge of the Vedas, knows more of her than what other ordinary persons know so little of her inauspicious glories. More than Brahma, Ganesha, the guru of the Jnanins, knows. Again, Shambhu, the omniscient, knows the best of all. For in ancient times, the knowledge of the Prakriti Devi was given to him by Krishna, the highest spirit, in a solitary place in the Rasa Mandalam in the region of Goloka. Mahadeva, again, taught that knowledge of the Prakriti Devi to Dharma in the Shiva Loka. Dharma again gave the Prakriti mantra to my father, to Surya Vivasvan. My father became a siddha in the worship of Prakriti Devi when he practiced austerities, as instructed by Dharma. Of old, the Devas wanted to offer to me the government of the Yamaloka, but as I was very much dispassionate towards the world, I became unwilling and became ready instead to perform austerities. Then my father told me the glories of Prakriti Devi. Now I describe to you what I heard then from my father and what is stated in the Vedas, though very difficult to comprehend. Listen carefully, O fair-faced one. As the eternal space does not know its own extent, because its extent is infinite, so Prakriti Devi herself knows not her own glories, they being infinite. And what can be said of any other person on this? And here this passage again was highlighted by my father. She is the self of all, endowed with all powers and lordship, the cause of all causes, the Lord of all, the origin of all, and the preserver of all. She is eternal, always with her cosmic body full of everlasting bliss, without any special form, without any one, limited to any one special form, unrestrained, having no fear, without any disease and decay, unattached, the witness of all, the refuge of all, and higher than the highest. She is with Maya and she is Mula Prakriti, the objects created by her being known as the Prakrit creation, who remains as Prakriti and Purusha inseparable from each other as Agni and her burning force, the Mahamaya of the nature of everlasting existence, intelligence, and bliss, or Satchidanandam. Though formless, she assumes forms for the gratification of the desires of her bhaktas. She created first the beautiful form of Gopala Sundari, form of Sri Krishna, very lovely and beautiful, captivating the mind. His body is blue like the fresh rain cloud. He is young and dressed like a cowherd. Millions of Kandarpas, millions of Kamadevas are, as it were, playing in his body. His eyes vie with the midday lotus of the autumn. The beauty of his face outshines the millions and millions of full moons. His body is decorated with invaluable ornaments decked with jewels. His sweet smile reigns ever on his lips. And he is adorned, moreover, with his yellow-colored invaluable robe. He is Parama Brahman. His whole body is burning with the Brahma Teja, the fiery energy of Brahman. His body is fiery. He is lovely and sweet to look at, of a peaceful temper, the Lord of Radha, and he is infinite. He is sitting on a jeweled throne in the Rasa Mandalam and is incessantly looked upon by the smiling, lovely gopis, all at the same time. He is two-armed. A garland made of wildflowers is hanging from his neck. He is playing his flute. His breast is resplendent with the Kaustubha gem that he always wears. His body is anointed with kunkuma, aguru, the fragrant and cooling paste of the aguru wood, musk and sandal paste. The garland of beautiful champaka and malati flowers is hanging from his neck. On his head, the beautiful crest is being seen, a little obliquely situated in the form of the beautiful moon. Thus the bhaktas, filled with bhaktis, with various flavors of bhakti, meditate on him. O child, it is through fear of him that the Creator is doing his work of creation of this universe and is recording the prarabdha fruits of their karmas. And that Vishnu is awarding the fruits of tapas and is preserving the universe. By his command, The Kalagni Rudra Deva is destroying all, by whose favor Shiva has become Mrityunjaya, the conqueror of death and the foremost of the Jnanins, knowing whom Shiva has become himself endowed with knowledge and the lord of the knowers of knowledge, full of the highest bliss, devotion, and dispassion, through whose fear the wind becomes the foremost of runners and carries things, the sun gives heat, Indra gives rain, I, Yama, destroy, Agni burns, and Varuna, or water, cools all things, by whose command the regions of the 10 quarters of the sky are watching and preserving the nice order of space, through whose sphere the planets are describing their several orbits, trees flower and yield fruits, by whose command time destroys all, by whose command all beings, whether on land or in water, are quitting their lives in time, until the proper time comes. No man does not, when the proper time comes, no man does not die. Or until the proper time comes, no man dies, even if he be pierced in battle or in danger. By whose command the wind supports, or the wind moves the water supports the turtle supports the Ananta, and the Ananta supports the earth supports the oceans, mountains, and all the jewels. The earth is of the nature of forgiveness and endures all. For this reason, all things moving and non-moving rest on her and again melt away in her. 71 divine yugas constitute the one Indra's life period. 28 Indra's life periods constitute Brahma's 1 day and 1 night. Thus, 30 days constitute Brahma's 1 month, so 2 months constitute 1 Ritu, or season of Brahma. 6 Ritus make 1 year of Brahma. 100 such years constitute Brahma's life. When Brahma dies, Sri Hari's eye closes. That is the Prakritik Pralaya. At this time, everything, moving and non-moving, from the Deva Loka to the Bhur Loka, dies. The creator Brahma gets dissolved back into the navel of Sri Krishna. The four-armed Vishnu of Vaikuntha sleeps on Kshira Samudra, the ocean of milk. He dissolves onto the left side of Sri Krishna, the highest spirit. All the other Shaktis dissolve in Mula Prakriti. The Maya of Vishnu. The Mula Prakriti Durga, the presiding deity of Buddhi, or reason, dissolves in the Buddhi of Krishna. Skanda, the Ansha of Narayana, dissolves in his breast. Ganesha, the foremost of the Devas, born in part of Krishna, dissolves in the arm of Sri Krishna. And those who are born in parts of Padma dissolve in her body, and Padma, or which is Lakshmi, dissolves in the body of Radha. All the gopis and all the bodies of the Devas dissolve in Radha's body. But Radha, the presiding deity of the Purana of Sri Krishna, dissolves into the breath of Sri Krishna. Savitri, the 4 Vedas and all the Shastras dissolve in Saraswati, and Saraswati gets dissolved in the tongue of Sri Krishna, the highest self. The Gopas in the region of Goloka dissolve in the pores of his skin. The Pranavayu of all dissolve in his Pranavayu. The fire dissolves into the fire in his belly. Water dissolves into the tip of his tongue. And the Vaishnavas, drinking the nectar of bhakti, the essence of all essences, dissolve into his lotus feet. All smaller virats dissolve in the Mahavirat, and the Mahavirat dissolves in the body of Sri Krishna. O child, he is Krishna, on the pores of whose skin are situated endless universes, at the closing of whose eyes the Prakritik Pralaya comes, and on the opening of whose eyes creation takes place anew. The closing and opening of the eyes takes the same length of time. Brahma's creation lasts 100 years, and the Pralaya also lasts 100 years. O one of good vows, there is no counting how many Brahmas and how many creations and dissolutions have taken place. As one cannot count the number of dust particles, so one cannot count the creations and dissolutions. This is the great unspeakable wonder. Again, on whose closing of the eyes the Pralaya takes place, and on whose opening of the eyes the creation takes place, after the will of God, that Krishna dissolves at the time of Pralaya in Prakriti. This highest Shakti, the Mula Prakriti, is the only one without a second. It is the only one Nirguna and the highest Purusha. It is considered as Sat, the existent, by the rishis of the Vedas. Such a thing as Mula Prakriti is the unchanged state of Mukti. During the Pralaya, this one Mula Prakriti appears as Jnana Shakti, or the power of knowledge. Who in this universe can recite her glories? Mukti is of four kinds: Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, and Nirvana. So it is stated in the Vedas. Out of them, bhakti towards the Deva is the highest, so much so that the Deva bhakti is superior to Mukti. Mukti gives Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, and Nirvana. But the bhaktas do not want any of it. They want the service of the Lord and nothing else. The state of becoming Shiva, of becoming an Amara, or an immortal, an undying one, becoming a Brahma, birth, death, disease, old age, fear, sorrow, or wealth, or assuming a divine form, or nirvana or moksha, are all alike looked on by the bhaktas with disregard and contempt, because mukti is without any service, while bhakti increases service. Thus, I have told you the difference between bhakti and mukti. Now hear about the cutting off of the fruits of past karmas. O chaste one, this service of the highest Lord severs the ties of past karmas. This service is really the true knowledge. So, O child, I have now told you the real truth leading to auspicious results. Now you can go freely as you desire. Thus saying to Savitri, Yama, the son of Surya, gave life back to her husband and, blessing her, became ready to go to his own abode. Seeing Dharmaraja ready to go away, Savitri became sorry to have the bereavement of good company. She bowed down at his feet and began to cry. Yama, the ocean of mercy, hearing the crying of Savitri, began to weep himself and told her the following words. O child, you enjoy in this holy Bharata happiness for 1,00,000 years, and you will in the end go to the Devi Loka, Manidvipa. Now go back to your house and observe for 14 years the vow called Savitri Vrata, for the mukti of women. This Vrata is to be observed on the 14th day of the waxing moon, or in other words, on the full moon in the month of Jyeshta. Then observe the Mahalakshmi Vrata. Its proper time is the 8th day of the waxing moon of the month of Bhadra. For 16 years consecutively without any break, this vow is to be observed. So on the full moon of Jyeshta and on the 8th day of the waxing of Bhadra. Those two, each year for 16 years. The woman who practices with devotion this vow goes to the abode of Mula Prakriti. You, in addition, should worship on every Tuesday in every month the Devi Mangala Chandika, giver of all good. On the 8th day of the waxing of the moon, you should worship Devi Shashti, also named Devasena. You should worship Manasa Devi, the giver of all siddhis, on the Sankranti day, when the sun enters a new sign in every year. You should worship Radha, the central figure of rasa, more than the prana of Krishna, on every full moon night in the month of Kartika, and you should observe fasting on the 8th day of the waxing and worship the Vishnu Maya Bhagavati Devi, the destructrix of all difficulties and dangers. The chaste woman with a husband and sons who worships the Jagadamba Mula Prakriti, whether in yantra or in mantra or in murti, enjoys all pleasures in this world and in the end goes to the Devi Loka of Manidvipa. O child, the sadhaka must worship all the manifestations of the Devi day and night. At all times, one must worship the omnipresent Durga, the highest Ishvari. Thus saying, Dharmaraja went to his own abode. Savitri, too, with her husband Satyavan, went to her home. Both Savitri and Satyavan, when they reached their home, narrated all their stories to their friends and acquaintances. In time, by the blessing of Yama, Savitri's father got sons, and her father-in-law recovered his eyesight and kingdom, and Savitri herself had sons. For 1,00,000 years, Savitri enjoyed pleasures in the holy land of Bharata, and ultimately went with her husband to the Devi Loka. Savitri is the presiding deity of the Surya Mandalam, the solar orb. The sun is the central Parabrahman. The Gayatri mantra, the presiding Devi, proves the existence of the highest Brahman in the center of the sun. Therefore, she is called Savitri. Also, her name is Savitri because all the Vedas have come out of her. Thus, I have narrated the excellent story of Savitri and the fruitions of the karmas of the several jivas. Now, what more do you want to hear? Say. And here ends the 38th chapter in the 9th book on the glories of the Devi and on the nature of bhakti, and the Mahapuranam Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharshi Veda Vyasa. And that ends the section on Savitri Devi. We can start up next week. Next week, we begin the chapters specifically on Lakshmi Devi.
Awesome. Thank you, Devla.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
There was a statement in there about the Ekadashi statement where he says you go to Vaikunta and then you come back as a devotee and then you go to Goloka.
Yeah, let me find it again. I thought you'd be interested in the Ekadashi statement.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Of all the catalog of various options, that's really the one that you do.
Yeah.
Let me find that again. Do you have that page?
Oh no, but probably in chapter 30.
That sounds right.
When we started. But I guess I'm mostly curious if first of all, what's the difference between Vaikunta and Goloka?
Vaikunta is, broadly speaking, Vaikunta is the world of Vishnu, Goloka of Krishna.
Oh, okay.
So let's see here. I think I can find that Ekadashi part.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, okay, so like Vaikunta isn't as permanent as Goloka, in theory. Is that?
Yes. It's extremely long lasting, but it is, at least according to here, it is a more cyclical emanation, although a very lengthy one.
Yeah. That's been one of the more interesting things that I've learned from these readings is like the different, like these lokas that are like, quote unquote heavenly and paradise.
Yes.
But not, and then like we've kind of been talking about the Devi Purana has been bringing this up. Yeah, about how those aren't permanent and like it's actually maybe I don't know. It seems a little like a sidetrack to hang out in these other lokas.
In the lower heavens, yeah, like Svargaloka, that's more of a sidetrack.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're up in Vaikunta or Shivaloka or so on, that's on a higher track for sure. But I found it. He who observes the Ekadashi day, who remains fasting and performing penances on the 11th day of the waxing or waning of the moon, after death, remains in Vaikunta in great enjoyment and comfort. It doesn't say for how long. Then, again coming into this Bharata, so he'll be reborn on earth, become a devotee of Hari. And when that bhakti is intensified, he becomes solely devoted to Hari. And then upon dying again, goes to the Goloka and gets the Sarupya of Krishna, so obtains a form resembling the body of Krishna and becomes Krishna's attendant. He never again undergoes old age or death and never falls from Goloka, but resides there as Krishna's attendant with an appearance resembling Krishna forever.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the Ekadashi fruits.
Beautiful.
A good stay in Vaikunta, one more rebirth as a Hari devotee, and then becomes Krishna's eternal attendant.
Yeah, it's so interesting to be that you would be able to like ascend so high as Vaikunta, but then like still need to reincarnate at some point.
One more time, yeah.
Oh yeah. So be it. It's interesting. I guess I hadn't heard maybe like briefly that Yama is the son of Surya, the son
Yes,
of the god of the sun, Surya,
yes,
right?
yes, he is. Yes.
Okay, wild.
Hmm.
Uh, let's see. Oh, yeah, there was the four ways of Mukti. That was cool.
Oh, yes.
Uh, mhm.
Yeah, there's the four types of Salokya, dwelling in the same world, Sarishti, or partaking in the same power, um, and like the freedom and power and splendor of your Ishta. Sarupya, which is obtaining a similar form, like is promised for the Ekadashi observant of obtaining Sarupya of Krishna.
Huh.
Um, and um, and the here it didn't use the term sayujya, which is sometimes used. Here instead it said nirvana, but the full absorption and mergence into the deity,
Huh.
such that they become non-different. Yeah, there's the different. Some
Wow.
some teachers actually list five kinds. Here it was talking about four, but yeah, the different varieties of mukti.
Neat. Okay, so the wind supports water, the water supports a tortoise, and the
Yeah, these
tortoise
are
supports the Ananta, and the Ananta supports the earth. So what's is the tortoise Kurma, or and then what is the Ananta?
um this that was a very quick little reference to something that has actually never been mentioned in any of the cosmological descriptions. And
Huh.
um generally I take it to because the detailed cosmological chapters never mention such a turtle. I take that as more of kind of a poetic reference to
Mm,
a sort of like popular children's story or fable type thing with the reference to the tortoise. It's not Kurma Avatar.
mm.
Ananta is Ananta Shesha Naga, who does indeed support the earth, it is said, at um, the base of the Patala Lokas, or the underworlds. That it's said that the
Wow.
earth rests um, like a tiny piece atop one of his thousand hoods, is what all the Puranas
Okay.
say.
Wow.
That his
Vishnu's serpent,
Yes,
Sheshnag.
yes,
Wow. Okay.
of whom Balarama is a manifestation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing. And then Satyavan was
yeah,
Savitri's,
Savitri's husband. Savitri, so there's
and
Savitri the goddess, and then separately there's her avatar as a human woman.
whoa.
So Savitri the human woman married Satyavan. That's her husband.
Right. And could you take us back to the start where that came from? Where that started?
Of
What
like the
what
goddess
had happened to
Savitri.
Satyavan? And
Oh yeah, so he died.
yeah, how did that? And yeah.
Satyavan was
Mm,
cursed to die young. He did indeed die. It's of some internal, like it seems like a heart attack or something. He wasn't injured or poisoned or anything external. He just
uh,
dropped dead while gathering wood in the forest
oh
one
yeah.
day, in accordance with the curse that he would die at a very young age. And then
Oh,
Savitri, his wife, was spiritually able to see Yamaraja, the god of death, who came for him, and follow him deep on the path to his realm. And that's what led them into her whole conversation with Yama, in which she earned boons from him, including the return of her husband to life. So she
wow.
followed him into death and brought him back.
Oh
So
wow.
that is Savitri, the avatar, as a human woman, an incarnation of the goddess Savitri.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And is there a name like a Gita name for that or something? You know, like the Yama Gita or something like that.
Yeah, there is, in fact. Yes. The Yamagita specifically. That's a
Is that
thing.
what it's called?
Yeah, that is a thing. Yeah, the
Neat.
teachings of Yamato Savitri, we just had a version of it. It's given in many, many different texts. Yeah,
Oh. Uh-huh.
yeah.
Wow. Neat. That'd be amazing to hear like other renditions of it.
Yeah, there's a famous version in Mahabharata. There's a lot of different
Oh,
Puranas reference the teachings of Yamato Savitri. Yeah, it's a really famous teaching.
amazing.
It's
Okay.
it's it's basically it's by and large the same as what we had here. There's some differences in emphasis, but it's
Hmm.
the same essential teachings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Dave.
Thank you.
Jay Ma.
Jai Ma.